Living in the pitch-black darkness of the caves of southern Europe is a tiny, eyeless Chinese dragon thing that can regrow its arms and sense prey using electricity. Well, that's not even the half of it. The Olm is the world's longest living salamander and has taken Gloria Gaynor's Call to Survive to heart as it grows strong and learns how to get along without food and light and stuff. But sometimes the neutral gin is the way to live a long life here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Ryan for the creation of this week's artwork. To check it out, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at LD Taxonomy or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com.
And today we're talking about a lost boy that lives in caves and doesn't want to grow up. But more on that later.
A long wormy boy.
Yeah.
Or he grows up forever. But what are we talking about?
We're talking about the Olm. Alms for the poor.
Darn it, there goes one of my nicknames.
Listen, you gotta be quick with this.
Delete. Apparently I'm one of those weird people that when there's an L near the end of a word, I pronounce it like folk. And
wait, is it supposed to be Ohm?
I don't know. But I've been, some people have pointed out that, like, it's not folk, it's folk.
No, it's folk.
And it's not yolk, it's yoke.
That's correct.
What? No, when you yoke an ox and you don't want to be unequally yoked, that's one thing. But an egg yolk? That's different.
Oh, yeah. Wait. So obviously, Y-O-K-E is not pronounced yolk.
Right, yeah, I'm talking about the egg thing.
The egg is pronounced yolk.
Yolk. No, it's yolk.
Not according to
just
the
like it's
robot
walk
in my computer.
It's not walk, it's walk. And it's Olm.
If you look up how to pronounce yolk with an L, it spells it Y-O-W-K.
That must be incorrect. It must be.
Google is never wrong.
Why put an L there? There's a reason why we do these things.
But folk, I think I would agree with you.
Maybe it's a little bit tricky thing to say. So
actually, folk, Google also says F-O-W-K.
Yeah, I guess for like Southerners, like folk used to say.
I'm hearing it both ways.
People who say folk instead of folk should say ohm instead of ohm. But anyway, we're talking about an Olm.
Yeah.
O-L-M. We're also going to call it here. This one's from Brian. The off-brand axolotl, which I totally get. If you look at it, it just looks like a long axolotl.
Uh-huh.
It's axolotl, actually. No, wait. It's Yeah, it is axolotl. The axolotl is axolotl. Because this guy's long. It's also No Country for Old Men. And Old Man Wigglesnacks, which I'll talk about.
It also has another name that it goes by.
The Proteus.
Yeah, Proteus.
I forgot to include that. I did read that, and I was like, ooh, that's cool. And then I didn't put it in. But it is part of the taxonomy.
Yeah. Would you like to hear about that?
I sure would.
It lives in the kingdom you know, love, and reside within, Animalia. It's in the phylum Chordata. It's in the class Amphibia, so it's kin with frogs in that regard. The order is Urodela.
Udalali.
Udalali, please give me alms for the poor.
This is double Robin Hood reference.
The family is Proteidae.
Sure.
The genus is Proteus, like you can call the Olm Proteus, because it's the only member of the genus.
Proteus.
And the species is Anguinus. Proteus anguinus.
Thomas Aquinas.
Thomas Aquinas.
The enlightened theologian. But since we're talking about naming things, like naming them Thomas, it's time for my favorite part of the show, nitty-gritty nomenclature. I couldn't find a collective noun for this guy. So, with nitty-gritty nomenclature, in case you're new to the show, I asked Joe a question, and that question is, how do you translate the binomial nomenclature, which we just established is Proteus or Proteus Anguinus. So usually it's Greek or Latin. On the whole, they tend to mean something. Sometimes I get a dud, and it just means like this genus, and that's it. A word made up for the genus. But for the most part, they usually mean something. And in this case, it does. So, Joe, what does Proteus Anguinus mean? Is it A, serpentine water god? B, ancient blood? C, strong cycles? Or D, primordial worm?
Ancient blood sounds cool as heck, so let's do that.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Incorrect. The answer is serpentine water god.
Okay, that was like my third to fourth choice.
Really?
Yeah.
When I was reading them, I was like, oh my goodness, it's gonna be so obvious that this is serpentine water god is so awkward that that it would be obvious that I didn't make it up. All the other ones seem like so.
It seems obvious that you would make it up because it lives in the water. It's a serpent-like creature.
Yeah, but like the deity Proteus is the Greek water prophetic deity.
It also reminds me of words that mean old or first.
Yeah, like Prothean or prototype.
Or progenitor.
Yeah, so that's why I was going ancient and primordial. Or strong, protect. I'm glad it was challenging. I was afraid it wouldn't be.
Okie dokie. Would you like to know what it looks like?
Yeah, I would.
Well, the Olm is a writhing, slimy salamander with a long, slender body and tiny little arms and tiny little legs. They are mostly torso, and their tail is relatively short with a thin fin located on it for swimming. Their heads are alligator-shaped, like a rounded triangle. If you can pick long, flat, round triangles.
You know, round triangles.
Triangles that are shaved, like the edges are shaved so that your toddlers doesn't hit their head on it.
Beveled triangles.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a Japanese or Chinese dragon.
In the terms of the head shape?
No, the whole thing, like a very long, writhing torso with tiny little legs and arms, and then yeah, like an alligator-esque, like long snouted head, kind of like Haku from Spirited Away.
Yeah. Olms are called Covesia ribica, which means human fish, because they have pale human skin tone colors.
Man, if you ask me to translate human fish into Latin, that is not what I would have come up with.
It's not Latin. It's Serbian. It's Croatian.
Oh, there we go. That answers that question.
Koveica. I wish I knew more about how to pronounce Croatian.
I just put on your best Russian accent and go with it.
If my own last name is any indication, it should be pretty phonetic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot you're Croatian. I know that when Andrew and I went to Croatia, we stayed in a town called Grabovac. That's just fun. That's just fun to say.
Strangely, these weird little limbs it has only have 3 toes on the forelegs and 2 toes on the back legs.
Shameful.
And they also have frilly external gills like the axolotl.
Mm-hmm.
So you said they were axolotl because they're bigger than the axolotl. So let's talk about how big they are. Welcome to the Beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send in audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new measure up intro this week, so that means we get to hear from an animal, and Carlos has to guess what it is.
Great. It's probably going to be fun to listen to.
Without further ado... Oh, Joy said Laura, who is a small child, really loved one of the animal sounds, and she kept mimicking it over and over. And I'm assuming it wasn't that, just like that horrible seal sound.
Was that seal sound horrible? I don't remember.
Yeah. It's the one that sounded like Taco Bell.
It
was the
wages of Taco Bell is death.
It was from the Atlantic Mudskipper episode. The snow leopard.
Oh, yeah. That one threw me for a loop. That was like one of my last options to pick would have been the snow leopard. Just so weird.
Okay, so we're not listening to a snow leopard this week, but without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show. So, is that A, a Cape buffalo, B, an alpaca, C, a hippopotamus, or D, an elephant seal?
Wow, those are all really good options there. I don't think it's a hippo, so I'm going to rule that out. I'm also going to rule out Cape buffalo, so I think it's between alpaca. Final answer.
Alpaca.
Yeah.
Okay, the correct answer is C, hippopotamus.
Oh, that's the first one I eliminated too.
I thought the alpaca was just going to be a dark horse, like something that's so odd that it seems like it could be right.
They have that like deep grunt bleat. That just sounds like it definitely could have been an alpaca. And I have no idea what hippos sound like. So
large mammalian grunts could all, be put in the same gumbo.
That's my favorite indie band.
A gumbo of grunts.
Delicious.
Let's talk length. They're between 20 and 30 centimeters, or 8 to 12 inches in length.
Okay.
How many go into Mahajezers in the Albanian Alps?
Excuse me?
It's a mountain.
Another mountain. Well, at least it's a foot, so whatever I guess on I don't have to do the extra math step. Whatever I guess is the answer, is my answer.
Would you like a hint?
Will it help?
Sure. The mountain is among the Proclatiae, or accursed mountains. The mountains are tall with steep sides. Their insurmountability and the wild, untamed nature of the terrain in the area likely earned it the name accursed.
You got to get in touch with your cultural heritage and learn some Croatian Croatian, I guess. Maybe that would help you with Serbian.
It's difficult to make that jump. It's not like learning Spanish or a Germanic language. Unless, what are its roots? What's
Slavic?
Croatian? Yeah.
Slavic. It's all the Southern and Eastern European language bases.
Very few cognats.
I hate cognats.
I love cognats.
They swarm all over the place.
They swarm all over the place, making words easier to remember.
Yes, because they sound like other words. Mountains in Southern Europe are tall sometimes. 10,000 feet. Actually, I think that's what I guessed on the last mountain. But I was like spot on when I did that. So let's do it again. 10,000 feet, which means the answer is 10,000 ohms.
Final answer.
Which sounds like I'm measuring the electrical current resistance of this mountain.
Final answer?
10,000. 10K. 10 large.
The correct answer is 8,980 ohms.
Close. Not close enough.
Jersey is 8,839 feet, or 2,694, which I measured by the metrics, which is why
meters.
It's a little off. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk weight. They're 0.6 ounces, which is 6,000 kilograms. I'm just kidding. It's it's 17 grams.
Okay.
How many ohms go into the largest slanina ever?
I refuse to answer.
Doesn't that sound like a not good word?
Yeah, it sounds not great.
Here's a hint. A slanina is also it's also called a pancetta or a sallow.
I don't like any of this.
Pancetta sounds like food.
That's
it's a slab of pork. It's like a giant piece of bacon.
All of these sound like Pokemon names.
It's a cured slab of fatback. If you wanted to hear more words that sounded bad.
I like cured. That's my favorite word that you've said so far.
It was prepared by 4 buds from Slavonia, Croatia, and it came from a pig that was worth more than 10,000 kuna.
Now you're just speaking gibberish. So it's got to be limited to the size of the pig. Pigs can get pretty darn big, though. Big pigs. I'm going to go with 75 pounds. If it's like the entire back, I guess. Slab. Yeah. Nah, that's got to be too much. No, maybe not. But pig's really big. So we'll go 75 pounds. This is not going to be easy math. I'm going to say 2,000. So in terms of weight, you can either have one pancharetta or whatever you said, or 2,000 wriggling tiny dragon salamanders. Your choice, really.
Final answer?
Yeah.
Correct answer was 11,411 ohms.
How heavy? Did I do the math wrong?
The Slanino weighed 194 kilograms or 427 pounds.
Nope, I did the math right. Just got the guess drastically wrong. 194 kilograms, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, almost 400 pounds. Or over 400 pounds.
And then the pig itself was like 300, 400 kilograms, so...
Yeah, I knew pigs could get really big.
Pig. Would you like to know any fast facts before we get into the major fact?
Sure.
Olms are adapted to life in total darkness. They live in caves, as we mentioned, and swim around in dank cave water. Because of this, they have underdeveloped eyes, or almost undeveloped eyes, and are completely blind, except for some light sensitivity. Instead, they use their excellent smell and hearing to get around. Their eyes are sensitive to light, and if they detect it, they'll swim away. Since they have no pigmentation in their skin, they could get a pretty bad sunburn. Hey, guess what? Same.
Yep. Well, it takes me a while to get sunburned, but when I do, it's bad.
Olms are able to sense organic chemicals in the water, even in low concentrations. Chemoreceptors allow them to detect prey, including snails, insects, and crustaceans.
Again, that's going to be your daughter's name, right?
And crustacean.
The fantasy has ended.
They also have electroreceptors that allow them to detect electrical fields. Some researchers believe that they may be able to use the Earth's magnetic field to orient themselves.
You'd have to do something in complete and utter darkness.
Yeah, post democracy, when democracy is dead, according to the according to the Washington Post. Olms are gregarious. Same. And they like to have parties in stone cracks and caves, kind of like in the Matrix.
The second one. Don't watch it. Don't watch it, kids.
Their really long heads are really good because the inner surface of their nasal cavity is thicker than in other amphibians, and there's more surface areas, and they have a Jacobson organ, which I think we've talked about before.
I don't recall that.
It's like it helps their smell. It's a additional. It increases the ability to smell. It's almost like you can. I think it's almost like you can taste what you smell.
So it's like chemoreceptors, kind of.
So their hearing and their smelling is way better than above ground amphibians and salamanders that are similar to them.
Thanks to their Jacobson's organ.
But
I wonder
that's
who.
all I got.
I wonder who discovered that. Jacob Jacobson, probably. All right, you ready for the major fact?
I sure am.
I'm calling it "I Will Survive," and if you listen to the intro, you got a little taste of that. So it turns out spending your whole life in a cold cave with no light whatsoever can have an interesting effect on vertebrates. As you mentioned, the olm doesn't have no eyes, but they're completely covered with skin. So it looks like it doesn't have any eyes. They're completely undeveloped and basically useless. Although they do think it can detect light throughout its body, actually. They're not exactly sure how or why, because there is no light where it lives, in the depths of the caves. But where we're going, we don't need eyes. We're going to be talking about this long-lived salamander. So it takes about 5 months after an egg is fertilized for the olm to hatch. And then it takes another 14 years to reach sexual maturity. And then after that, it remains reproductively viable for another 85 years. So, all told, these guys can live up to and possibly over 100 years. Which, when I put this topic in, I probably should have spaced it out from the tortoise episode, because those guys live like 300 years, 250 years or whatever, which is really impressive. But, for a tiny salamander, for things that are this small, it's not common to find a lifespan over, a few years, let alone a century. And this is one of the longest lifespans for vertebrates in general, especially vertebrates that don't live in the ocean. So the question is, how can it live so long?
It eats green vegetables.
No, it
actually doesn't.
Not even one.
Eat your crustaceans, kids.
Yeah. Just eat crab ragu. Crab ragu. Just eat that. And bisque, lobster bisque. And you'll live to be 100, probably. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Complicating things is the fact that the water it lives in is just over 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. And so while this doesn't sound very cold, like you'd be uncomfortable, but you'd make it, it definitely matters if you're a cold-blooded amphibian, which the olm definitely is. Plus, food can be extremely difficult to come by in the depths of a cave. So this little salamander spends all of its time in a cold, foodless, lightless cave, which sounds like a great way to spend your time if you've only got 100 years to live.
It found food in a lightless place.
Perfect. I think my brain specifically represses that song because I hate it so much.
Yeah, were you working somewhere where it was playing constantly?
No, there was a time where I heard it on the radio all the time, back when I used to listen to the radio.
Well, there's your problem.
And yeah, that was my problem. And it was so vapid that it really just impressed on me for a little while. And then I think my subconscious, in order to cope, just tried to remove it from my memory.
Welcome to pop music.
I know, but that one's particularly nothing. It's particularly nothing.
That song, someone that I used to know also like really grinds my gears.
But the love in the hopeless place, it's just wait, how many? You found love in a hopeless place. So it's 7 words, the chorus that she sings like 7 or 8 times, and then the whole like dance part is 2 notes. That's it. It's like it's worse than chopsticks. Awful. Anyway, I would much rather listen to I found food in a lightless place. All right, so how is it possible that the Olm lives so long? The almighty Olm is uniquely adapted to live in this very harsh environment. The cold, rather than actually being a hindrance or a complication, actually goes a long way toward helping it live so long. Its longevity. By living in this cold environment, it drastically slows the Olm's metabolic rate, which, for those of you that don't know, your metabolism is how you turn food into energy. How quickly that happens, how much energy is required and produced, how much food is required to produce a certain amount of energy. And so animals and people have varying rates of metabolism. We've talked about animals whose metabolism was so fast that they need to be just constantly eating all the time forever. I think it's the kangaroo mouse that we talked about. Lives in the cold desert. In order to live, it needs to be constantly eating because its metabolism is so high. This is the exact opposite. This goes the way of a Greenland shark, which, if you'll remember, is another long-lived animal. So rather than constantly needing food, it actually needs food very seldomly. And a byproduct of your metabolism turning food into energy, the creation of energy, is the creation of free radicals, which sounds great, like early church history, free radicals. But no, they're actually really bad for you. A free radical is an atom or a molecule that is unstable and will interact with DNA strands and tissue cells, doing damage to them. They're natural byproduct of cells producing energy in the body, so they're completely unavoidable, but they still contribute to aging and muscle deterioration. And you can't necessarily reduce the number of free radicals that are produced, but you can reduce their effect by eating things like blueberries that have lots of antioxidants that fight the free radicals. So eat your blueberries, kids. Unfortunately, the axolotl does not have access to abundance of blueberries, or any blueberries for that matter. So instead, it just has a really, 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 really low metabolic rate. And so it doesn't produce very many free radicals. And so its DNA, the teleals, which are the ends on DNA strands, are not as damaged, which means it slows its aging rate and also its deterioration. And so with this slower metabolism, they can literally chill out for long periods of time because it's so cold. But one Olm was recorded to have they swim, so it's just kind of like laid on the floor of this cave in this one spot for almost 7 years. Not moving or eating or anything. It just was there. It existed and lived for 7 years in one single spot. And in fact, they can go for up to and possibly over 10 years, a full decade, without eating anything. And that's thanks to A, their low metabolism, and B, their unique way of storing nutrients and energy in their liver using, I'm not a chemist, but it has something to do with storing lipids and glycogen in large quantities in the liver. If that means anything to you, congratulations. To me, it's gobbledygook that means that they make the most of their meals. So they'll gorge themselves when they can, but then they store it so effectively that they can live for a decade before having to eat again. Kind of, like a tardigrade. A tardigrade doesn't hunt or anything like that, but it can reduce its metabolic rate so much so that it can basically live without food or water or air for a really long time. Obviously, the tardigrade is the king of survivability, but the olm is up there. Almost. Plus, like the axolotl, they have Wolverine-esque regeneration powers, if you remember that episode. So the olm can regrow limbs that are lost or eaten or cut off or whatever. So while they're in this famine mode, they can even absorb their own tissue for nutrients and then regrow that tissue once they get a meal. Their long-awaited meal. So these guys are the best at starving for long periods of time. They've mastered the art of starving forever. But all this survivability contributes to the fact that they just spend so much time not doing anything. I mean, you think cats sit around doing nothing all day. These guys can sit around for 7 years at least without moving from their spot. Crazy. They're like plants. But they're aware of their environment, so it must be really boring. But yeah, that's the olm.
They love spelunking and partying in cracks.
Same? Never mind. No, I wouldn't. I'd like to party in a house.
What is a house if not a crack made of man-made walls?
I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying.
No one does.
You got anything else?
That's all I got.
All right, that was the olm. Basically, the axolotl's second evolution in Pokemon evolution, not actual evolution. But yeah, if the axolotl is your starter, then the olm is what it evolves into at level 16, and that's when it learns Bubble Beam. And who knows when we'll get to the final one, and it gains a ground type. So for you out there in Podcastia, if you're still listening, engage your electroreceptors. Make the most out of every meal. And always be sure to store both lipids and glycogen in your liver, like the olm here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, thanks for listening to the episode. Just a few quick things. As always, reviews and social media engagement are greatly appreciated, but recommending the podcast to friends is the best way to help us grow. If you'd like some LDT flavored merch, check out teespring.com/stores/taxonomyteas. That's it. Thanks for listening all the way to the end.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
We did it. Very similar to the axolotl.
Yep. Except it lives longer.